Future chefs of the Twin Cities, what is happening? This is your boy, Chef Ja in the building. As I say, we always in the kitchen. It has been a while, man. So many things have been going on, but for the positive, for the better. But without further ado, before I even discuss all that, I just want to say welcome back. Thank you for all of you who have been subscribing. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure that you subscribe to this channel, Future Chefs of the Twin Cities. Today I'm going to show you how to make Swedish meatballs. Yes, for those of you who haven't had it, we're about to tune into a delicious dinner recipe. Swedish meatballs and noodles, a classic dish, one of my personal favorites. And we're just going to get right into it. So I'm going to flip this camera around for my future chefs here. And we are going to get started. Okay, so here you see I have actually with me, I actually have my meat mixture already prepared. And I have my meat mixture already prepared right here. Okay, now this was made last night. And I let it marinate. When you make this meat mixture, you can let it go. You can, let it marinate and come together for about an hour minimum. Some people say 30 minutes to an hour. I like to say an hour just because I like to let the flavors all marry together. But this calls for, authentic Swedish meatballs calls for ground pork and beef. However, your boy here does not eat pork. So I use beef and a combination of beef and turkey. And so that's what I have in my meat mixture. To make this meat mixture, you'll need about a pound of ground beef. Okay. You'll also need one small onion, minced really well, not chopped. So minced is basically you cut it very, 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 very small. Very little fine little pieces. One minced onion. You're going to need 2 eggs. You're going to need some plain breadcrumbs. But if you don't use breadcrumbs, me personally, I like to take a loaf of rye bread, anywhere from Walmart, Target, whatever, day old, fresh bread, doesn't matter. And I like to cut it into very small cubes, and I like to put it inside my meat. It just gives a heartier, a thicker texture to the meatballs when they cook. You're also going to need about a quarter of a teaspoon of allspice, some parsley, you need some kosher salt, some ground black pepper, and you're going to need about a quarter cup of heavy whipping cream. You're going to add all that to your meat mixture, and it's going to look like this when it's all done. Again, it may not look necessarily like this, but this has been, I made this last night, and so I'm making it the next day. So the flavors are going to be ridiculous. I have on gloves because I have my pan ready to go. When you make Swedish meatballs, you can put them in a cast iron skillet or a hot skillet to cook the meatballs. Me, today, I'm going to put them in the oven to bake. So my oven is already preheated at 400 degrees. I'm going to cook these meatballs in the oven for about 8 to 10 minutes, and I'm going to turn them over and finish them for another 5 to 7 minutes. I have my sheet pan lined with foil already sprayed down with nonstick cooking spray, and I'm just going to take my meatballs and I'm going to make some meatballs about the size of a golf ball, just like that. Okay, about golf ball size. And I'm going to do that until they're all finished. I may not make all these meatballs at once. I may only use half of this and freeze the meat for a future meal, because I don't need a gang of meatballs, right? So this is the authentic way of making Swedish meatballs. It uses ground pork and beef. I'm not using pork because I don't eat pork myself, but it uses ground pork and ground beef, allspice. Even the authentic way of making Swedish meatballs calls for bread, actually day-old bread or rye bread, that you actually chop it up instead of breadcrumbs. But if you don't have bread like that just sitting around that's about to go bad or stale or fresh loaf, you can just use plain breadcrumbs, which is exactly what I showed you in the recipe setup. Okay. So I've been gone for a while. Oh man, I've been working together with this page, and a whole lot of opportunities for business, photo shoots, networking. Juneteenth just recently passed, so shout out to everyone who participated and, you know, supported local businesses, small businesses, black-owned businesses for Juneteenth. A beautiful, beautiful celebration that I had the pleasure of being a part of, and also out there just vendoring and gathering support as well. I've been talking with some other people who are very interested in this Future Chefs of the Twin Cities classes. I do classes, and I teach you all. Not only do I teach you the recipes, but I teach you the nutrition behind it. I teach you the science behind it. For instance, for these meatballs, this recipe may come off a tad bit different in flavor, or not as strong in flavor, I should say, just because I'm baking them instead of searing them. There's nothing like cooking meat in a skillet, right? A hot skillet. I got my cast iron skillet sitting over there, and just searing that meat and getting that crispy, crunchy texture on the outside. And oh man, it just really helps those flavors combine. It just really helps those flavors a lot better when you're making the sauce. But I'm going to take, when these bake, these are going to make some drippings on this pan. It's going to create a lot of juice on this pan, and I'm going to pour that into my skillet, and I'm going to finish up with the sauce that way. So it might be a difference in flavor. It might not be too much. It might not be a difference at all, but we'll see. Okay, so that's the science behind it. Nutrition wise, this isn't going to be the most healthiest meal for you, but it's going to be a big meal, and it's going to be a hearty meal and a delicious meal. And if you had Swedish meatballs before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. When you get done making something like this, it smells like your grandma's kitchen. If she was a person that if she made Swedish meatballs growing up. So to a lot of people, this recipe brings back a lot of memories. This is almost the same process when you make meatballs for spaghetti and meatballs, or pretty much anything Italian. But this is a Swedish recipe. Okay, so I'm going to pull these gloves off. And you still have about almost half of my mixture. I'm going to save that for another time. Put it in the freezer. It should be good for about another month, to be honest. Side tip, any meat that you freeze is good in the freezer for 3 months. Okay, make sure it's compacted tight, and when you put it in the freezer bag, press all the air out. You know, stash it in the freezer in a safe position. Don't stack a whole bunch of meat on top of each other, even though it's frozen. And all meat that you put in the freezer will be good for about 3 months. Not that you should wait that long, but it's just a FYI. So I'm gonna put these into my oven. And those will be set. I'm going to take this leftover mixture, and I'm going to wrap this up and freeze it like I already stated. And I could pull that back out whenever I want to. Like, oh, let's do something else with these meatballs, or I make another batch of Swedish meatballs, because they're going to be so good. They're going to be so good that you're probably going to want to put these in the fridge and make another batch the next day. Kids, your family, whoever will love them. Okay. All right, future chefs. I also have a pot on my stovetop of boiling water. I added about a tablespoon of kosher salt. The reason why, if you ever hear somebody say add salt to your boiling water, is that it will also, not only will it flavor whichever noodle that you put into your boiling water, but the salt actually acts as a, what is the word for it? It actually acts, it advances the timing for your water to boil. So if you had to boil water, it naturally would take about, depending on your level that you have it on, it'll take you about 10 to 15 minutes. When you add salt, it cuts it down to about, to 7 to 8 minutes. So just about half. So not that we're in a rush, but it's just one of those pro tips you learn about, cooking, especially boiling water and boiling noodles. You want that flavor for your noodles, and you also want that, you know, to speed up the process a little bit. Nobody wants to spend all day rushing, or, you know, trying to rush some water to boil so we can cook our noodles. Okay? All right. So when I wrap my meat, sometimes I might use a bag, but if I don't use a bag, you saw that I lightly sprayed some plastic wrap, like so, and then I place it in foil, just like that. It's like you wrap the burger to go, right? And I'm gonna put that I'll put this bad boy in my freezer, and I'll probably come back to that in about another couple of weeks. I'm not gonna show you guys my freezer because I got all kinds of things reserved in there that I pull out for a later use. All right, take these gloves off again because I did touch meat. Always make sure that when you're working with meat, you have a sanitized, clean space, right? And that you wash your hands even after you use gloves, okay? So I'm gonna do that real quick. And as you see, I have more. Shaking my camera a little bit. I got some other ingredients over there, and that is going to be used later for our sauce. Because you're going to want to make the sauce. Whether you fry your meatballs in a skillet, or you sear them in a skillet, or you bake them, right? Because we all know bacon is a little bit healthier than searing them in a skillet, even though nothing beats the flavor of meatballs in a skillet, right? But after you're done with your meatballs, you'll take the drippings from the pan or your skillet, and you'll add in your butter. You're going to need about 2 tablespoons, actually 2 to 3 tablespoons of butter, right? Unsalted, because you already have the unsalted butter, because you already have salt that's going to be from the drippings of the meat and the juice. And the sauce itself calls for a little bit extra salt at the end. Always remember, kosher salt is a little bit, it's stronger than iodine, the iodized table salt. All right, because it's more coarse, it's more thick. You don't need a lot. So you're going to add about 2 to 3 tablespoons of butter into that skillet. When you're done mixing up the drippings, you're going to add 1/4 cup of flour. All right, you're going to sprinkle that in while you're whisking the skillet. And I will show all this. I will show the process later, you guys. You're going to whisk that in. It's going to become like a roux. Remember we talked about that roux with butter and flour? You're going to mix that in really well, all on a medium to low heat. You're going to see it thicken up. Then you're going to add another 1/4 cup of heavy cream. And you're going to add 3 cups of beef stock, right? That's going to you're going to slowly bring that to the boil while you're whisking. And it's going to create a really nice, rich, creamy, thick sauce for your meatballs. While that's chilling out while your meatballs are done and chilling out on the side, you're going to drop those into your sauce and just let them cook and swim. All right. So for those of you who might look at your meatballs and still think they're a tad bit pink or raw inside, that's okay, because when they're going to finish cooking in that sauce, right? Also, when you make that sauce, you're going to add about 2 teaspoons of coarse black pepper. I love pepper, so I'm gonna use about a tablespoon actually. You're gonna use about 2 tablespoons of parsley. I got dry parsley. You can use fresh parsley, doesn't matter. And another 1/4 teaspoon of allspice. So all these ingredients that I have over here chilling on the side, we're definitely going to use all those for later. I'm going to put these eggs and onions back because I don't need this. I already made my meat mixture. That was just to show you guys. And when those meatballs are done, I'm going to pull those out. We'll get started with the skillet. And I'm going to pour the drippers in the skillet, and we're going to show you how to make the sauce. So future chefs of the Twin Cities, stay tuned. This is Chef Ja. I miss all you guys. Stay tuned for the Swedish meatballs and noodles recipe. We'll be back.